productive. Wow. If we're united,
right,
we can be effective.
Right.
And if we're effective, then of course we must be productive. You know, so I believe that the time is now, and that we're doing the right thing.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Christian, and thank you everyone, you know, for joining me today on the Diaspora Today show. I will see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
The narrative for Africa is long-term. It's about progress and access to a market that is evolving and changing. And I think over the past 10 years, that Africa Rising story is really what is happening.
The Initiative for Global Development is a network of global business leaders with a distinct mission to ensure that investments in Africa will deliver inclusive growth on the continent.
It is really related to the actual environment in your country.
The 2017 Frontier 100 Forum took place in Durban, South Africa, and focused on business-driven solutions to address sustainable employment for African youth.
This is really what IGD is doing, and facilitating that engagement between different private sector players that can work effectively and produce a real impact.
We've begun to see the commitment from private sector, and based on what I've heard here, I then realized that we're going in the right direction, which is a good thing.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Diaspora Show on Central Africa Channel TV station. I'm your host today. My name is Abdurrashid Abubakar. On today's show, I have here with me a very successful, brilliant and unique individual. You will all enjoy the show today, I promise you that. I'm talking about Dr. Mima Nedeljkovic. Dr. Mima, welcome to the show today.
Thank you, Rashid. My pleasure.
It's very fantastic to know that you spent more than 40 years working across the African continent. What inspires you about Africa? Can you tell me?
Well, I started there. I was 6 months old when the family moved to Ethiopia. I'm originally from today's Serbia, born in Belgrade, but I grew up my first 10 years in Addis Ababa, in Ethiopia. So the interest begins from day one, practically. And thereafter, my whole career has one way or another been involved with Africa, either in the business side or the U.S. government side.
So you spent close to 40 years working in the African continent. Tell me, where do you see Africa in the next 10 years?
Very good question, because I have the longitudinal view, very much so, and part of my excitement really on the continent is exactly what's happened very aggressively and progressively in the last few years. You know, really since independence, if you will, you had a period of time that the continent was developing relatively slowly. But I think we've really seen a kind of a peaking, particularly in the private sector development side. The investment, I mean, this last 5 to 10 years has been massive growth of the private sector, the middle, sort of the growing middle class, let's call it the spending class. I think the big changes on the continent are, I mean, there's twofold, the major ones. One is the rapid growth of the population. We're going to be doubling to almost 2 billion on the continent. And the other major factor is urbanization, because we're getting to almost 50% urban. Lifestyles are changing, you know, people.
Welcome to the Diaspora Today show. I'm your host, and my name is Abdurrashid Abubakar. We are one-on-one here today with one of Africa's brightest, successful, and well-respected in the world. I'm talking about Jean AbiNader, the Executive Director, Moroccan American Trade and Investment Center, an international business advisory,
Hello, welcome to the show today.
Thank you. It's great to be here with you.
Can you tell us down memory lane how it all started?
That's a really good question, because in some ways it's almost a model for how to build good, strong bilateral relationships. In 2003, Mohammed VI, who was the King of Morocco since 1999, when he succeeded his father Hassan II, came to the United States and visited with President George W. Bush. The idea was, how can we build stronger relationships between Morocco, which was the first country to recognize the United States back in 1777, and the United States, which, as you know, is the world's most powerful country. And out of this discussion came the idea of having a free trade agreement between Morocco and the United States. And so the negotiations began, and in 2006, it came into force.